Hi, welcome back to another TerranScapes video. This is part of my sort of ongoing series of new releases, and it's the last version of the new basing system that I've sort of developed with the removable discs. And this set of pieces kind of represents, very much like the graveyard that I showed a few videos back, there's the back finger, these were pieces where I never really knew how to build them, because how to maintain the appearance and the playability has always been a challenge. So this new way of building vegetative or other objects, terrain, and making it playable has finally allowed me to do really, I think, really good jungle terrain. Jungle terrain, to me, should be dense. It should look like a jungle. It should be thick and full of a variety of vegetation. And that makes it a real challenge for moving troops through it. And in the past, I've done it as a large patch, and that just never really looked right. And anyway, so what I've done here is take that idea and bring it, onto this basing system, and I think I achieved something much more significantly interesting than my previous jungle pieces. So let's take a closer look at them, and I'll show you what I mean. So these are the jungle pieces that I developed for one of the tables that I wanted to have a very lush feel. And one of the things that I felt was lacking, and I think other people have pointed out in the past, not just about my own jungle terrain, but jungle terrain in general, is that it often lacks, any real color, and you end up with this very, uniform greens that sort of, I think, in some ways obscure the individuality of the plants. So what I've done here is really make a significant effort to make a lot of colors throughout the pieces that will give them some pop and make the entire set look a lot more interesting visually. Now, before we look at some of these a little more closely, I should add that almost 70, maybe 80% of the vegetation that you see here has been modified in some way. There are almost no pieces that have really been put onto these bases that come straight off of the parent plants that I have collected over the last couple years. I actually collected quite a few styles of plants over time, and even when I wasn't making jungle terrain, anytime I'd go into the craft store and see something really interesting, or I was going to pick up something else and I thought, let me just take a quick look at some of the plants that are available, I would find a couple, pick them up, and at this point now I finally have the diversity in the stock that I feel like I can really build some interesting and diverse types of plants to really capture that jungle feel. So what I'm going to do, because seeing these from a distance I don't think captures the detail that's on them as very well, is I'm going to go in close and we can take a look at some of these stands in a little more detail. So you can see the sort of density that I've been trying to achieve, and of course these are mounted on the removable discs, so you can still pull out these big chunks of foliage and be able to get troops or models or vehicles into the interior of these pieces. This is the small size here with the 3 individual bases, and what I've done is to go through and just try to detail a little bit of the edges of these bases, but not really go crazy on it, as playability is really my key focus with this, as I think that's been something that's been really lacking in jungle terrain, for me at least, in the past. But when you take a look at it, you can see that I have made a real attempt here to add a lot of vegetation variation, and many of these plants have been cobbled together. These are all individual leaves that have been put together. These are a series of palm trees that I have had for quite a while, actually. Varied their height, added a little flower top. We'll call that a flower top, because really, I mean, what kinds of plants are in the jungle? Everything flowers at some point. So I wanted something that doesn't necessarily look you know, perfectly realistic to, you know, a South American jungle, but something that might have a bit of a Lustrian theme where there's a little bit more variation than what we would normally expect. And this is one of the medium bases. And what it sort of highlights, in the past I've tried to differentiate, you know, trees, make a tree, you know, like a forest base for jungles, and then have, you know, lower forest bases. But what I realized when I started to do these is that's no longer needed, and I don't think looks very good. So I've tried to scatter tall pieces amongst all of the different bases to give a sense of varying height, and varying texture as well. Whenever I see, like I said, a particularly interesting plant that I think will work to scale, you know, I pick it up right away. Sometimes, like this plant, I bought every single one they had because I loved it so much, and they didn't have very many. But you know, it gives it, I think, a little bit more depth as well. Some of the plants are, you know, say for like this one, have been cobbled together out of a couple different plants. Something like this as well, one of these sort of pitcher plant type pieces, you know, cobbled together out of a variety of sources. And this was a little experimental piece I had done. I think I even showed this piece where I've sort of added a little bit of flower tufts to the top of it. That one's actually unique. That's the only one in the entire set. But you know, get a sense of, you know, there's some repeating plants throughout, but also a few uniques scattered around. And I think it really helps to give it the kind of biodiversity that I've always wanted to have in my jungle terrain in a way that was never really achievable before. And here you can see one of the large bases, and you know, again, incorporating, you know, as many varieties as I can. I'm sounding redundant, but it was something that I really strove to do. And also, I should make mention that one of the things that I think has helped the overall look of these was really hitting everything with a matte clear coat, which knocked down the sort of plastic shine that's very typical of these kinds of plants, and also knocked down the shine out of anywhere where there was hot glue from their attachment. All of these pieces have been hot glued into place because of their varying you know, attachment points and the way they've been constructed. You know, it's not really possible to drill holes into these and permanently mount them with super glue. But I feel like the attachment of them is quite strong, actually, much better than, well, really as good as I had hoped for, is what I should say. And actually, during the sort of play testing that these received, the actual bases had a bit of flock along their sides, and so they were actually pretty difficult to remove. And even with people playing, sorry, I'm bumping the camera there, even with people playing with them for a big game and struggling to get some of these pieces out, and I told them, just pull, just you know, use them as hard as you need to, so that I could get a good sense of how they were holding up. After all of that gaming, there was only a single plant, you know, something like this, that had actually pulled off of the bases. So I feel really good about that, and the kinds of durability that this will, you know, hold over, you know, a long period of time for gaming. We'll go in real close and take another look at these before we go on to the next piece. So here's a sort of understory look at the base, and give you a sense of some of the detail that is on some of the plants. One of the friends that had come over for gaming, you know, had commented, he was like, there's so much to look at, and that made me feel really good, actually. I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but that was the kind of reaction that I was hoping these would get, because I really tried to take you know, the detail and the interest from the large, you know, viewpoint from a table height gamer's perspective down to, you know, looking in close and in between the bases and seeing all the little tiny plants that have been stuck in there. And I've tried to expand the kinds of vegetation that I've used. You know, I don't often use this yellow super turf from Silfloor, but I think it just works really nicely in a jungle terrain where you can get a little bit more of an odd color, bring some of that pop to the overall visual, you know, impact that the set has. And you can see, you know, that all of these pieces have been, cropped and cut, and, these are little tiny pieces off of much larger vine, but when clumped together like that, just give a nice little small plant kind of creeping out from the undergrowth there, that I think is really nice. Oh, cat hair. There's a cat hair in every shipment from TerranScapes. But in any case, you get a sense of, how that detail carries through the pieces, and I was just really pleased with them. Obviously, to assemble this kind of density and these kinds of plant parts in, in new, novel ways, it is a time-consuming process. So it's not, something that I can let go for a low price necessarily, but I think for the avid gamer in 40K or the avid Lizardmen player, I think this is going to make a scenoramic table that is really going to make a big difference in your overall gaming. You can see I added little berries to the tops of these trees. I gave a wash to the stems of these just to give them a little bit more realistic coloring. And what I've done also is tried to maintain uniformity amongst the species. So this particular palm tree always gets this kind of a top. These particular palm trees always get this color of flower, whatever. Now, I don't know if I can maintain that kind of regularity, looking forward. If I don't build these for another, 6 months, am I going to remember all these things? No, but if a set is ordered, in one go, that's the kind of thing that I'll definitely always be looking to do, because I think it adds a little bit more realism when you see, the same species of plant repeated throughout the set. So anyway, that gives you another look at the jungle terrain up close, and I have one more piece to show. And the final piece related to the jungle stands, but slightly different, is sort of, I don't have to come up with a name for it, but the skeletal stand might be the best I can come up with. And if you were, viewing my videos, there's the way back finger. Quite a ways back, I did a frozen wasteland type board set, and I had incorporated a skeleton into that. And when I had done that, I immediately thought just how fantastic that kind of an idea would look in jungle terrain. And in some ways, that idea is what, partially sparked me to undertake this entire sort of project, if you will. So, this is a wonderfully detailed skeleton. I picked up a few of these different species online. And what I've done in this instance, because the skeleton is so large, I didn't think I could incorporate it in a realistic way onto, individual discs that could be playable. So in my mind, this is an impassable piece of terrain, but by giving me a bigger footprint to lay out the skeleton, I can, take some of the individual bones, cut them apart, lay them out in a more natural way, like the animal has fallen and maybe scavengers have picked the bones, but some of them still remain. And then, even though I felt kind of bad obscuring some of that detail, I did go in and put in a heavy amount of vegetation around it to keep it in line with the rest of the jungle terrain, and also, maintain that sense that it's been there for a while and the jungle reclaims these kinds of victims relatively quickly. So I think it's a really fun thematic piece, and it came out, I was really pleased with how it came out overall. And so this will, be its own kind of a separate entry in the store, but it's definitely something I'd like to revisit in the future. It was, very enjoyable to build, and it's sort of fun to envision, the last throes of this kind of an animal, which, of course, could very plausibly be a stegodon in Warhammer Fantasy, but, it works well in any kind of fantasy or sci-fi jungle setting. But in any case, it was just something that I wanted to add that had a little pop on the table, a little more unique than some of the, more uniform jungle stands that I've already shown you. And just as a final last look, I wanted to just show you some of the details that are present on this, with the nice teeth laid in and some of the texturing on the horn and the frill. It's not, it's not a Games Workshop quality model, if you will, but I couldn't afford to buy a bunch of these and stick them on anyway. But it does have really nice detail, picks up a wash, and has great, you know, lines in all of the bones, and I think is, you know, enough detail to really make it stand out. And there you get a little shot of the tail hidden amongst the vegetation. So it's the kind of piece where you can come over and look at it from different angles and see different things peeking out from the vegetation. Kind of like I said, really fun to work on, very thematic, and definitely a visual addition to the table when it's put down. So I felt like I was blathering on there a little bit, but I was really pleased with how these came out, and it was the first time, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, that I finally had the diversity in my, you know, sort of palette there to really do as much as I wanted and more to construct individual plants, and I think it adds a lot to it, and so anyway, I was pretty pleased with them. So, and I don't often get excited about my own work. Not that I'm down about it, but I mean, you know, I'm always, you know, maybe a little critical of small errors that might be occurring here and there. And I think with this, any of the small flaws that are on there, I'm willing to overlook for the overall feel that was something I always wanted to do. So, if I haven't mentioned it before, these pieces that I've shown were the actual pieces that we were using in the Warhammer party there, and I developed 4 thematic tables. I've shown you in past videos many of those elements, and these will be going up on the site as a complete table purchase. So I think with Jungle, that's almost more important than any of the other pieces I've shown, because it really can look out of place to have a single, you know, stand of jungle foliage on the middle of the table and say, you know, this is a jungle table, or, you know, it may look out of place with other kinds of terrain elements. So I have one more video to shoot today that will show you a couple of the adjunct pieces that I added to some of these tables, and it gives you an opportunity to have, you know, a really thematic table all at once for, you know, for those who might be interested in it. So keep your eye on the channel. Feel free to leave comments and questions down below. I say it all the time. I mean it. I appreciate that. And hopefully these will all be up on the... Had a technical glitch there. The camera cut out on me. So I'll wrap it up quick and just say stay tuned for another video coming out relatively shortly after this one, and keep an eye on the TerranScapes website for the new releases. These will be listed there, and of course some photos of them as well for you to take a look at. So I'll talk to you soon.